Hello, this is Louise Hay, and today I want to share with you a secret. If you really want to be responsible for your life, then you've got to be responsible for your words. The things we say are extensions of our thoughts. Now, what is the first thing that you say to yourself in the morning when you wake up? And the second thing and the third thing? Most people say more or less the same thing all the time in the morning. How does that start your day? Is that a positive way to start your day? Or is it grumbling and complaining? Because if you grumble and complain and moan, and that's the sort of day you're going to have, you're setting yourself up for it. What's the last thought you think at night before you go to bed? So you're shaping your future. And are they power thoughts or are they poverty thoughts? Remember, poverty is not just the lack of money. It can be the lack of anything in your life, any part of your life that is not flowing freely. So your normal way of thinking, are you really into poverty thoughts, or are you into power thoughts? I remember when I first heard that I could change my life if I was willing to change my thinking, and that was quite a revolutionary idea. This was in New York City when I first discovered the Church of Religious Science, Science of Mind. They were the very first people that told me that. And even though I didn't understand what they meant, it sort of rang a bell. It touched what I call the inner ding within me, that place of intuition. I've learned to follow that, because when that ding goes, yes, even if it sounds very crazy, I know that it's right for me. So this idea was right for me. It struck a chord in me. Something said, yes, they're right. And then I began the adventure of learning how to change my thinking. I read a lot of books. I took a lot of classes, and I explored everything I could. And I really delved into science of mind at the time because I found it really wonderful. And I grasped a few concepts, and I started to think and talk a little bit differently, and I no longer was complaining quite so much. I was a great complainer, and I was great into self-pity in those days. That was one of my things that I just loved. I didn't know that all it was doing was creating more experiences for me to pity myself over. But then I didn't know. In those days, remember, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you've contributed to creating, no matter what's happening, you're always doing the best you can with the understanding and awareness and knowledge that you have. And when you know more, you'll do it differently. So never ever please berate yourself for where you were, or even where you are. Say to yourself, you're doing the best you can. So let's find out what's the best way to do it. Because if all you do is tell yourself that you're stupid, then you stay stuck. You need loving support if you want to make changes. I started to watch some of what I said, and I became aware of my self-criticism, and I tried to stop it, and I began to babble affirmations without quite knowing what they meant, and a few small changes began to take place, and I started doing with the easy ones. Of course, I got the green lights in the parking places. I thought I knew it all, and I very soon became very cocky and arrogant and dogmatic in my beliefs and feeling. I knew all the answers, but it was my way of feeling safe in this new area that I was moving through. Because when you start to move away from some of your rigid old beliefs, especially if you've been into control forever in order to feel safe, it's very scary to move out and start trusting an affirmation. I mean, this is, a thought that's going through your mind and you're trusting it to change your life. That's a very scary thing to do. So I was grasping onto things, and yet it was a beginning. It was a beginning for me, and I still had a long way to go. And like most of us, I didn't find the pathway always easy and smooth, because just babbling affirmations didn't always work, and I couldn't understand why. What was I doing wrong? Was this one more example of me not being good enough? But my growing understanding enabled me to start the forgiveness process. You know, if you're walking down the street and somebody bumps into you and you whip around, you're very angry. How dare they do that? And then you see that the person is blind. The understanding that you have instantly dissolves that anger. And I think that when we can really begin to understand the childhood of the people who have done us wrong, it enables us to go almost beyond forgiveness and into understanding so that we can open the doors to our own heart. You see, people who have problems loving themselves are always people who are not willing to forgive because non-forgiveness shuts that door. And when you forgive and when you let go, not only does a huge weight drop over off your shoulders, but the doorway to your own self-love opens up. People will say, "Oh, such a load has dropped off." Well, of course, because you've been carrying this burden forever. Now, I'm not saying that we're condoning poor behavior, because we're not. We don't want to be in bondage ourselves. It is something that perhaps happened a long, long time ago. As my forgiveness of them grew, so did my willingness to forgive myself. Forgiveness of ourselves is enormously important. See, many of us grow up and we began hating our inner child for having had those experiences, and we do the same things to our inner child that they did to us. We just continue it. And that's very sad, because when we were children and other people may have been mistreating us, we didn't have options. But when we grow up and we are mistreating our own inner child, that's very sad and very, very tragic. And as I forgave myself, I began to trust myself to take care of me. When we don't trust life, or when we don't trust other people, it's really because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to take care of ourselves in a situation. So we say, "I'll never fall in love again," because I won't. I don't want to get hurt, or I will never let this happen. But what we're really saying is, "I don't trust you enough to take good care of me, so I'm going to stay away from everything." But I began to trust myself enough to take care of me, and I found it easier and easier to love myself. And my body was healing, and most of all, my heart was healing. Most of all, my heart was healing. You know, as Dr. Harrison says in that wonderful book, "Love your disease, forgiveness of both the self and the parents, or dropping the past," which is what you're doing cures more illness than antibiotics ever will. And he also says it takes a lot to stop children from loving their parents, but when they do, it takes even more for them to forgive. And therapy usually revolves around the willingness to forgive. When we won't forgive, when we won't let go, what we're really doing is binding ourselves to the past. And when you're stuck in the past, you cannot live in present time. And if you cannot live in present time, how are you going to create a glorious future? Because this stuff from the past just bounces over and creates more future stuff. Dr. Harrison with Love Your Disease and Bernie Siegel with Love, Medicine, and Miracles are both marvelous people. I quote them a lot because they're medical doctors who are into the spiritual way of looking at life and truly understand the connection of body, mind, and spirit. And it's interesting. Now I also discovered mirror work, and I did daily sessions in front of the mirror. 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes in the morning is wonderful, and you get better results if you can be consistent. All day long I thanked myself before I went to sleep. I thanked myself for what I had done during the day and knowing that I had done the best I could. And I affirmed that the healing process was taking place in my body while I slept, and that I'd awakened in the morning, bright and refreshed and feeling good in the morning. I'd awaken, and I'd thank everything I could think of, including myself and my body, and I'd know and affirm that this day would be a joy and a delight, and that I was willing to learn and to grow and to change. And I learned also that I could make changes without seeing myself as a bad person. Too many of us, we have to be wrong or bad in order to make a change. That's why we criticize ourselves so much. We think it's going to make a change, but it doesn't. When we can come from loving acceptance, then the changes come much easier. And we make a change because we want to improve the quality of our life, not because we're a bad person who has to be better. And it's a different way of looking at it. And when the doctor said I no longer had cancer in my body, I knew I'd made deep internal changes. You can't do inner work on yourself without improving the quality of our life. And that's what it's all about, really. We improve the quality of our life. We make peace with ourselves on an inner level, and we learn to love and accept who we are, and then life seems to flow much, much nicer. So what did this experience teach me personally? That I really had the power to change my life if I was willing to change my thinking. And as I worked with people, I really began to listen to what they said. I really began to hear the words, not just get the general drift. And after 10 minutes with a new client, I could tell exactly why they had a problem, because I could hear the words they were speaking. I could see how they were talking, and I knew that was contributing to their problem. And if they were talking and thinking that way, what was their self-talk like? It must be more and more of the same. Negative programming, poverty thinking, as I call it. And I really understood the saying that the subconscious mind has no sense of humor. This is important for us to know, because you cannot make a joke about yourself and just think, it doesn't mean anything if it's a put-down joke. Your subconscious mind accepts it as true. Your subconscious mind, or the universe, however you want to call it, accepts everything you say as truth for you, and it creates according to your beliefs. It's like God always says, yes, we have been given this infinite power of choice, and the universe backs up everything. And if you want to believe that you're a failure and nobody loves you, and that you'll never amount to anything, and life is difficult, and you'll never have what you want, the universe loves you enough to give you what you declare. You have unlimited choice. And if you choose these poverty concepts and beliefs, then it's assumed that that's what you want, and that's what you'll get, and will continue to get, until you're willing to change your thoughts and make other choices. We're never stuck, because we can always think another thought. Billions and billions of thoughts to choose from. I remember when I used to work with clients privately, I would hear them arguing so much for their limitations. They would always want me to know that they were stuck because this or this or this or whatever. But, if we believe that we're stuck, if we accept that we're stuck, then we are stuck. We get to be stuck because our belief is being fulfilled. And the way we say things and how we say them can be as simple as getting up in the morning and looking outside and seeing the rain and saying it's a lousy day or it's a wet day. It's totally different approach. And yet the rain is still there. The rain isn't going to make it any different. It's how you approach it. So notice how happy, joyous people usually have very nice lives. And notice how lonely, unhappy, poor, ill people often talk. How do they have a tendency to talk? What words do they use? And what have they accepted as the truth for themselves? How do they describe themselves? How do they describe their work, their lives, their relationships? What do they look forward to? What have they accepted as truth for them? And please don't run around telling perfect strangers that they're ruining their lives, and don't do it with your friends or family either, because it's not going to be appreciated. But use this information to begin to make connections that you can apply to yourself, because it's your life you want to change. Are you willing to change your life by changing your thinking? Because even on the smallest level, if you change your thinking and the way you talk, your experiences are going to change. Are you willing to change yourself? Talk into positive affirmations. Now remember, an affirmation is really anything we say or think. A lot of what we normally say and think is quite negative, and it doesn't create good experiences for ourselves. We have to retrain our thinking and speaking into positive patterns if we're going to get good results. When we talk about doing affirmations, we really mean to make a positive statement about something we want to eliminate from our life or something we want to create in our lives. And too often we say things like, "I don't want this in my life anymore." But that doesn't give us a clear picture. We don't state clearly what we do want. Just say, I don't want to be sick anymore. Doesn't give your subconscious mind a clear picture of the health you'd really like. You've got to realize that your spoken word is very, very powerful. If you say, "I hate this job," it doesn't give you a wonderful new job. Even if you get a new job, you'll probably hate it soon, because that's what you're saying about it. So you need to clearly declare your desires in a very positive way. Think for a moment, what is it you really want right now? What is it you want today in your life? And then say to yourself, "I accept for myself whatever that is." Now, do you really believe you really deserve to have it? Or what thoughts inside of you would you have to change in order to deserve it? If you really believe on some level that you're not good enough, for that life never works for you, or everybody else gets but not you, then you're not going to be able to get what you want. See, what would be the first thought that you would need to think to begin to create this new thing? What would be the building block, the foundation that you would stand on? What would be the sort of thing you would need to know for yourself, to believe, to accept? Well, a good one would be, "I love myself. I am worthy. I deserve. I am allowed to be fulfilled." Things that are positive, things that you can believe at the very basis of what you're saying, so that you can build on that, and then do your affirmations on top of that to create what you want. If you really believe that your thoughts create your world, you're going to be very careful what you think and what you say. And you're going to shake your thoughts to create what you want. And remember also, though, that when you first say an affirmation, it may not seem to be true. Because remember, affirmations are like planting seeds in the ground. And when you plant a seed in the ground, that's what you have. You don't have a full-grown plant. You have a little seed that has to germinate, which means it breaks its shell. And then the first little roots go down into the soil and get some nourishment. And only at that point does that first little shoot come up. And it's the same thing with affirmations. It takes some time, to go from a seed to a full-grown plant, and it takes some time from that first declaration to the final demonstration. We need to be patient with the growing season. I like to think sometimes of doing treatment work or affirmations. It's like going to the cosmic kitchen. If you go to a restaurant and the waiter or waitress comes and takes your order, and they go into the kitchen and you don't run in with them to see how it's going to be prepared and when it's going to be prepared and how fast it's going to be out. You sit and you do what you do. You either have a drink or a cup of coffee, or you drink your water or your tea, or you talk to your friend, or you eat your rolls of butter and you assume that that's going to come out. Well, I think it's the same thing. Once we begin to do affirmations or treatment work, we've put it into what I like to think of as the cosmic kitchen, and the great chef is working on it. So you go on with your life, and you know that it's being taken care of. And if the issue comes up in your mind, you can say that's being taken care of. It's on order. It's happening now. You know, if you're in a restaurant and they bring the wrong order out, or it's not what you ordered and you have self-esteem, you'll send it back. If not, you'll eat it. You also have a right to do that with the cosmic kitchen. If you don't get exactly what you wanted, then say, no, that's not quite it. This is what I want. But perhaps you weren't clear in your ordering. What if you've been on the pathway and doing the work for some time? Does that mean you have nothing else to learn? Are you really going to sit on your laurels and just rest? Or do you realize that this inner work is a lifetime occupation and that once you start it, you really never stop? Or you can hit plateaus and you can take vacations, but basically it's a lifetime work, so you want to look at your life, really check it out. What works and what doesn't work now? Are all departments in your life the way you want them? Are you healthy? Are you happy? Are you prosperous? Are you creatively fulfilled? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? What areas do you need to work on? Is there more work to do? How do you need to change your thinking in certain areas? See, are you really aware of what you're currently saying and how you're saying it? A lot of us aren't too aware of that.